This video shows cutting down a hard maple tree. It goes from assessing the tree, cutting it down, all the way to bucking it up. The saw I'm using is a Husqvarna 141. As you can see, I've already cut down a number of trees. I'm kind of working from north to south on this lot. This is all part of the timber stand improvement or thinning of the woods. I walk up to the tree and assess it, look at it top to bottom, look at it from a couple of sides to see where I think it's going to fall, and I also look to see what is surrounding it that might hang it up if I fall it. So I choose a direction for it to fall, basically trying to get where it wants to fall, but also where it won't get hung up. Looks like the best spot is across the trail. In a timber stand improvement, especially when it's as dense as this, it can be difficult to not hang a tree up. This is a cold start, so it takes a few pulls to get it going. Then I let it warm up a little bit before I start cutting the tree. Before I make the first cut, I take a look to see, what the saw position needs to be to get the tree to fall where I want it to. I also did a double check to see that there is not much of anything that's going to hang it up. Sometimes you do anyway because there's no other choices, but I try not to. It's kind of a pain to get a hung up tree down. It takes extra time. This tree is pretty balanced, so I didn't need to do anything out of the ordinary as far as cutting it. Just a simple wedge and back cut. I take my time with the wedge. You really want to be careful with how you set this up so you don't have any Dutchmen. This is the front part of the hinge, which is critical for how the tree is going to fall. So I double check it after it's out, make sure that there's nothing set up that is going to cause me any grief before I go doing the back cut. I don't start the back cut until I'm happy with the way that the wedge is. That is what really sets this up, and once you start the back cut, you want to finish. So it's important to get that wedge right the first time and then back cut right up within a couple of inches in it, depending on the diameter of the tree. It's important not to bring the back cut too close to your wedge, which will give you too thin of a hinge, or to cut the hinge off. That's really bad. That's when the tree will fall whichever way it wants to. You really want to leave a healthy hinge about 10% of the diameter of the tree so it falls right where you want it to. Like I said, this tree was pretty balanced, so it did not fall. So I double checked that the Back cut was about the right distance, so the hinge was the right thickness. Stick a wedge in it, hammer on the wedge a little bit, and she comes over. Although this tree is pretty small, it's still got about 40 feet of stem before the first crotch. Here I'm measuring to buck this up, especially since it came across the trail. I want to cut it up into pieces so that I can move it out of the way to continue to use the trail. The first cut is at about 12 foot. There's a bit of a knot on the side of the tree, which is a good place to cut it, and 12 foot is a reasonable saw length. After this, it'll be mostly firewood, so I try to cut around 11 foot. That gives me equal 16-inch pieces with the kerf of the chainsaw. In the past, I would have dragged these logs out in roughly 20-foot pieces, depending on how they looked. But now that I have the forestry trailer, I'll cut them to length to be able to move out on that trailer. I can move quite a few logs at one time with that. There's not enough room under this log to get my chain bar all the way under, so I do a semi-plunge cut to keep the chain out of the dirt, keep it sharp. You have to be very aware of kickback when doing something like that. I don't recommend it for people who don't have much experience with a chainsaw and haven't done a lot of plunge cutting. I trim some branches on my way up the tree before deciding where that last cut is. And I end up deciding to measure it so that I can get some reasonable length logs without getting one too short or too long. So I end up cutting this log at about 11 feet, and there's about another 9 foot log before the crotch after this log. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Please leave a comment with any suggestions or questions. I read them all and I appreciate them.